Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Contour. I am 18 years old, and I'm going to be studying musical theater at Shenandoah University in the fall. And I am here with Joshua Finkel, who is an actor, director, acting coach, done Broadway, TV, film, anything you can name. So,
Hi guys, how are you doing? Am I on? Am I here? Hello.
yeah, there you are.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Um, so I wanted to start with the difference between working in theater and film, because that's all. And I know it's two very different mediums, and
Hmm.
like, what's the differences in that?
Well, I'm a theater boy through and through. Like I love that medium so much because I love the daily routine of it. I love the jigsaw puzzle of it. Like let's say you're doing comedy and you have that live feedback performance after performance to kind of figure out the puzzle and go, why did that laugh work last night? And then, you can never get comfortable and think, oh, now I've got it because something else will change dynamically. And if something does change, how do you fix it? But you have that live sounding board to compare it against. The other thing too is, especially if you're on a long run, and I've done long runs, like I've did 2 4-year runs back to back, 8 shows a week, thousands of performances of something. So the 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 drift of that or the danger of it is to kind of get sort of zoned out and not really be listening and really present. So one of the things that came kind of out of my grad school training program, which was the professional theater training program. Back then it was the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Then that faculty moved to Delaware. And now, sadly, that training program is no longer doing a training program. They're just having a regional theater in Delaware at the University of Delaware. But the faculty is still there running that theater company. But the training was great. And one of the things that they really trained into us every day was we did sort of a certain routine every morning as part of our warm up. And they were always talking about, what are you seeing right now? What are you seeing today? What are you noticing in front of you right now? Instead of like, oh God, here we are again, blah, 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 blah. And boy, oh boy, if you're on performance, number 1471 of Les Miserables or whatever, and you could just be there, going, okay, butter, eggs, cheese. All right, I pick my dry cleaning. You could just really not be there. But that training always made me really look what's in front of me, and the difference of actually really looking and being there 100% versus just being there 99% and half your brain is on your shopping list. The difference of how fatigued you feel is huge. Because if you're not going for it 100%, you feel invigorated and you feel engaged. If half of you is checked out, it becomes like, oh my God, when's this week over? So I love theater in that way. Film is fun because there's it's always surprising to me to look at the difference of what it really is to film something and then how it ends up looking. The magic of special effects, matte
Yeah,
photography, CG, all that kind of stuff. Like really, what it ends up with is magnificent. But some of the process is the same. The thing that's harder about film is that um, it's really a director's medium in the sense that a lot of it's filmed out of sequence and due to budget. You have to consolidate your locations. Like we're going to do all the New York exteriors, even though they take place at very different parts of the film. So if you're an actor, you're doing page 1, page 35, and page 76. So you have to kind of you don't have time to discover and rehearsal and build the show and watch it evolve. You're like, you have to come fully loaded and drop into your arc on page 34 and know where you are. All that work before. And hopefully you've done it right. And hopefully you're all on the same page and it ends up not being incongruous when you try to put it together out of being out of sequence. So in a way, the linear aspect of theater is really satisfying. If I try to do film, I try to work as linearly as possible if the budget allows. But right now in doing SORDID Lives and directing it for P3, it's like doing a film, but even more so because not only are we doing it out of sequence and doing it in small chunks because it is memorized, like you're not watching a reading, you're watching a performance. But in addition, it's like no one's in the same room. So you never have a chance to actually work with somebody, and we're all in the same room. I'm directing you, and we're like working on this, argument scene. It's like everyone's on Zoom or everyone's in their own thing with green screen, and you have to kind of coordinate. Like, oh, here, have this glass of water, and the other person's go, oh, thank you, and they have to pick up the same kind of glass. It has to be the same. It's all this continuity stuff that you have to think through, even more so with no other team. I don't have a crew of 80 people. That your job is continuity. Thanks for helping me. It's like, it's all me,
Yeah.
It's a lot of pre-planning and no one's in the same room. And that's kind of the COVID effect around this medium, but it's a great learning curve. And I'm going to be directing a feature film after this, hopefully in person. I'm going to wait till we can do it in person. It's not going to be online, but the training of this, it's like, well, if you could do this, going back to that, it'll be really easy.
Yeah, I totally get that, because I did A Beautiful Thing with P3, and we did sort of the same stuff with going in with the pencil or the gift, the pillow, and it's
you have to have the same pillow. Yeah.
Yeah. We're to take the pillowcases off so that they'll both look like white pillows.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so in directing Sordid Lives, how is it like, I know you sort of answered this, but how is it different than doing a live show in that you don't get that like audience response, and you don't know really how it's going to, like, the timing, the comedic timing, or like anything, like how would that work?
I think we're really luckily adept at understanding the mechanics of comedy and adjusting it. So I can kind of, one of the master classes I teach is called Mastering the Elements of Comedy. So I really break it down. So I think that once we can kind of, and I hire people that organically have a sense of being funny. It's hard to make someone who's organically not, I can teach it, but someone who's organically not funny, you know what I mean? It's a longer road. And my cast is wonderful. They're wonderful. So sometimes it's just about, having an attention to that element. It might be taking out the air, taking out, interstitial pauses that suddenly wind something up to being funny, big contrast, things like that. So I can tell whether someone's going to laugh or not. Like, hopefully I'm laughing, or I can tell visually, mechanically, this is in the pocket. If people find it funny or not, or they have a reference point comparing it to the film, or whatever, they expect it to be a certain way, and it's not going to be a cloned performance. That's the other thing too. We're not like replicating or virtually mouthing to an existing product. We're letting people create the truth from the play, and it's certainly a wonderful model and a great vision that Del imparted to us. And I'm in touch with Del about it, but I really want to create it from the context and the obstacles and the situation and all the acting tools. And I feel that I'm hoping that it will get good response. But I also feel like, if you're going back to early television, one of the greatest strengths of early television was that, like Jackie Gleason, I Love Lucy, they were training it and filming it in front of a live audience. And that was the feedback. Carol Burnett Show. I mean, those are the things I grew up on and learned the craft from, and would rehearse and kind of model myself after. And in working with so many wonderful comedic actors over the years, one of my favorite stories is working with Cloris Leachman from, all the Mel Brooks films and Mary Tyler Moore Show and Phyllis and all that stuff. And she was so great, because she'd be like, okay, why do you think that was funny? And we would just kind of break it down, being analytical comedic actors, knowing those tools. And it was just so fun to go, like, you just think, oh, they're just brilliant. How do they do that? It's like, no, it's a craft, and Lucille Ball, coming from being like a beauty queen of Hollywood during the I Love Lucy years, every day would study physical comedy and clowning with Buster Keaton. She brought Buster Keaton into the studio and every day worked physical comedy. So, and even the cast would stay on the set long hours until all the physical business became effortless. Like, pop the toast, catch it, try it again. Pop the toast, catch it, try it again. Pop the toast, catch it. So that in the one time you have it in front of the audience, or the couple of audiences they had, it was locked and loaded, not like, gosh, I hope this is going to work. It was cemented. And I was talking to one of my actresses the other night, and I said, I find when I'm in a comedy or I'm in a farce, or the broader the comedy or the faster and wackier the kind of show it is, it always helps me not only to know my lines so cold, like I could fall off a building and know these lines, you know? Hold on one second, my dog is barking. Yanko. Good boy. Um, but you have to know everybody else's lines so that depending how it's riding with the audience and how it's kind of like unraveling, you know what's next and you can ravel it back together instead of I'm in my own zone, I only know my stuff. No, it's such a team sport. So that's really what that can all come together and be. And that's when I find comedy works the best. And it's the most satisfying where you know you're gonna like throw the frisbee to someone across the stage, they're gonna pick it and like run with it and kick it. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I'm working with. I'm a member of Musical Theater Guild in Los Angeles, and those are all like top Broadway and national tour actors who are. We run the whole company ourselves. We choose the seasons, we do the whole thing, and we do one performance, and we have 25 hours to do it. And sometimes it's a huge show, you know. But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You'll know, like we're on book, but you just know I'm going to throw that frisbee, and like I don't know what I'm doing, but they're going to kick it and give it back to you. And that's like this is the joy of it, you know. So it's a
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Um, so I want to talk a little about so now we're talking about directing Sordid Lives. What is, as being an actor, how has that influenced how you direct?
Oh, enormously, um, because I have a kind of a broad base of training. You know, I studied. I was doing theater when I was like just a kid. You know, not like doing big gigs, but I was like from through school. You know, in my room, always playing make believe, always whatever, doing summer theaters in the summer or whatever. So, and I did a lot of that, and I went to college 1 year at UC Santa Barbara, and I found at that time the program's completely changed. But when I was there, it was really stayed, and you know, like no matter who was in the program, this is how it went. You did this monologue first, then you did this. It was always the same thing. Not really being present to who the students were. What could we create from them? And plus, there was no musical theater there, and I love musical theater. So there was like the music department, and there was the theater department. So as a freshman, I directed and put together the first, like I called it the underground brown bag musical review or something. Like bring a lunch, sit in the amphitheater, and we're gonna do this like these 10 songs or these skits and like you know these sequences. I did like Little Priest from Sweeney Todd, and I mean like a really great wild stuff that we did with this group of singing actors that were so thrilled to get to do musical theater because didn't have a chance to there. And I was in the first show. It was A Soldier's Tale by Stravinsky, and I was the soldier. And that was the first thing that on the poster it said, the music and theater department present. And it was such a triumph, you know. But
Yeah.
I soon realized that I can't stay here. Like there's not enough kind of inspiration and work for me. So I knew I wanted to transfer. And my friend who I went to high school with was at UC-Irvine, and they were doing the first college production because it's like you know soon after Broadway, and they were doing the first college production ever of Sweeney Todd, which is one of my
Oh,
all-time
wow.
favorite musicals. So I was like, "That's where I'm transferring. I have to get in that show. I have to do that show," and I did. And then I spent 2 years at Irvine, and I graduated college in 3 years. And I went right into grad school, and by the time I was 22 or 23, I had my master's. So then
Wow.
I felt that was the thing that my parents always wanted to have me something to fall back on, like when and I had my master's, that gave me the credentials to be able to teach college, which I do as one of the things I do. So, and I'm at California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks. I'm a senior adjunct professor of musical theater in the theater and dance department, and I teach beginning acting and all sorts of stuff. So,
Yeah. Great.
so that is my thing to fall back on, and yet it's like still doing what I love to do instead of kind of doing a thing that I hate or something that you have to have a happy heart or it'll be a very long life. Find something you love, and
Yeah.
and look at and if you feel that it's not making you happy anymore, like the business is dragging you down, you can take a break, do something else. But if you just feel like I have to stay in this because someone's expecting me to, it really comes down to you. Like follow your passion, follow your heart, because it will show up in your work. and you'll enjoy your work instead of like having it be torture. So that's always the best way to live, you know?
Yeah,
And
I totally agree.
it's always a roller coaster. It's always going to be a roller coaster. You're going to have great years, crappy years, great years, crappy years. It's never not going to be that. That's just how the business rolls. So you know that, and then go, do I have enough stuff going on in my life, in relationships, hobbies, passions, things like friends, you know, things I like to do outside of my career, that your career isn't your whole life. It's just part of your life, you know, and the people
Yeah.
that make it their whole life, and if they're not working, they feel invalidated and they're nothing and they can't go to a party and they can't do anything because I have nothing to talk about. It's like, you are not your career. It's part of who you are, you know? And I'll just share one thing actually that I sort of trained my family to do, because
Yeah, definitely.
my family sort of sometimes lives vicariously through my career or whatever. So I go to Thanksgiving or whatever. It's like, so what are you doing right now? What's happening? What's going on? And I was like, you know, okay, here we go. Press play. Well, I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm directing this. I'm starring in that, you know, and it feels like I'm some kind of song and dance commercial. So I always try to shift the question instead of like, you know, what are you doing? I say, how are you doing? How's your mom? How's your, you know, how's your dog? How's that going? Like, I want to know about you more than your resume. And I'm going to tell you something really important about this business. That kind of conversation, more often than not, is actually what gets you hired. I have your resume. I know what you've done. I can work with this person or whatever, because I want to just know, like, I love this person. Did you like this person? Was that fun? Or it was like, this is really hard. Was that hard? Because I can see how we're going to work together and how we click. I know what you've done. I want to know who you are and if we're going to have a great time at 10 a.m. in the rehearsal room on Monday morning. And my dear friend Philip Himberg who's a wonderful director and used to run the Sundance Theater Lab. I think he doesn't do it anymore, I think. But auditioning, like, or meeting Robert Redford at Sundance to get that position. Robert Redford never once talked to him about the position or theater or anything. The entire time they talked about fly fishing.
Yeah.
And he was like, great, you got the job. Ta-da. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's cool.
That,
And
very
it's a
cool.
good,
Yeah.
tell when you go to your next family function, how are you doing? Not what are you doing?
How are you doing?
It's so how are you doing? Like, how are you? Not what's your resume, you know, think, oh gosh.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of a resume though, being in the original,
here we go.
I
stepped into that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you really did. Being in the original cast of Kiss of the Spider Woman with Cheetah Rivera must have been incredible. Like, what was it like working with her?
Oh, great. You know, the thing that she's such a gypsy, like a chorus gypsy at heart, you know what I mean? And she's warm and she's so talented and she's a smart technician and understands like how something will work. And believe me, you know, there were slots in that show. The one that actually, you know, was sort of our party piece. We'd go on the Tonys and do it, or the Where You Are, in the white tux and the hat, that like people that kind of know the show from all this stuff. And that slot, that sequence was probably 5 different numbers before we came to that one. The top of 2 was 3 different numbers before we settled on the one that, so a lot of it is like processing through and working out with the team what needs to be there, what does not need to be there, what's missing, something with relationships missing, you know. So the thing I really admired about Cheetah is that, you know, it's not her first time developing a new show, and she would just take that, she'd digest it, and even when she brought it to the fore, even when we're just trying stuff out, she could just sell standing still. She would make smart choices, full choices, and really let it out there like, this is where the number kind of would land right now. Do we still want it? Is it still working? But not because I'm kind of milk toasting, feeling my way. Like, she would go for it. And that kind of, you know, 8 show a week gypsy, like, I'm not marking, I'm doing it, you know, all day long, was inspirational. and it really let the show kind of, you could really see where the show was, and I'm kind of that way too. I mean, you do have to do to kind of go, I'm getting tired, you know, I have to just lay back or whatever, or take it easy, or just get better at my breath support or whatever. But that kind of inspiration and really letting the show live every time, so you really know where it was, and you just can really decide, do I want to keep that part in, or do we need to replace it with something else that's missing? And that was very helpful. And 8 shows a week, and you know what? She, even when she like hurt her knee in Chicago, and she finally had to like have something done to her knee, like she was out for a week. But until that very last second, she would be like holding on to that stairwell, like in her "Give Me Love" outfit, and getting up to the stage and getting into that third cage, and you know, like not calling in and going. And I was like, "You go, you be that example." So I'm like,
Yeah.
100%.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and I know you went on tour with them, with Spider-Woman, and was it the original tour of Les Miserables?
I did the original Los Angeles company at the gone but certainly not forgotten. It still has such a place in my heart. The Schubert Theater that used to be in Century City. They really did pave paradise and put up a parking lot. It was like just stucco. So,
Yeah.
so I did that company back in the late 80s. And I played it there. And then about 6 weeks after that company closed, I was put onto the bus and truck tour as a replacement. It was like that tour had been out for like maybe 10 months or something.
Okay.
So we were the second company in LA. There was like Broadway, the first Nash, and we were the second company that moved to San Francisco. Some company members went to San Francisco, and I went in the third company, the Marius company, that was the bus and truck tour.
Okay, yeah.
And I did that for another 2.5 years and did the circuit, and that was great because I've now been to all 50 states. I've been
Wow.
to 6 out of 7 continents. I've not been to Africa yet. I'm going to go. And I've been to Antarctica. Like, I've been everywhere. So
Wow.
it's just been incredible. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky because I love to travel, and I love dialects, and I love to I love actually like even though it's kind of a pain in the butt, but like multiple stops, just if I'm traveling light. I love to start New York, get off in Atlanta, get off here, get off there, and then like just walk out and just listen to everybody talking and listen to people on the intercom and calling people to the gate. I love immersing myself in dialects and finding that in my own sound. And it's one of the things I coach. So it's
Yeah.
just, I'm voracious about it. So I find it really fun. I love meeting all different people and how you're going to make it work here, and where we're now dressing in the in the alleyway at this theater, and you have to run in a crazy pattern to get to your entrance. But that's fun. It keeps it fresh. But at some point I kind of felt like I woke up and I didn't even know like what city are we in. Like I was kind of zoned out. It came to a point where I was like, I think I need to get off the road now and just kind of find home and just unpack my suitcase. I love being on the road, and I certainly know people that have been on the road for years and years, like company managers that were listed. Literally just was like 10 years on the road doing those circuits,
Wow.
the same circuit. And in one way, she's like, I'm back here. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I love that restaurant. I'm going to that gym. I'm doing that thing. What didn't I get to last time and the time I had? So you can kind of fill
Yeah.
in the blanks. And I've made some wonderful friends across the years, meeting them in these cities, dressers that were mine, or friends that I got to meet socially through other friends or or relatives of locals that I'm still in touch with. And that's one of the family thing of theater, I think, is just awesome. And
Yeah.
you're in it a long time, for a long run. So you do build a family versus a really short-term gig. Like this film is 2 days or 3 weeks, and you never see those people again, or hopefully you do, but it's not the kind of every day at 10 a.m. we're here in our sweats making it happen,
Yeah. Such a small world in theater.
Yeah, it really is. It's great.
Now, I have to talk about this because it's so cool. So you were the live live model for
Live action model or live action reference.
Animated The Little Mermaid.
Yes,
right?
that's Prince Eric. Yeah.
How did that happen? Like how did you become that?
Okay, so this is again, like I just talked about the Robert Redford conversation thing. All right, so I was doing Les Mis with the Schubert, and the the lady who was the kind of the PSM, or the kind of the head of the production of the crew of Little Mermaid at Disney, and our PSM of Les Mis, they were co-PSMs of Cats at the Schubert together, like the show before. So they were seeing all these different people for this work. And they were seeing, like, really beautiful, like, soap opera model people. They were seeing, and they were like, they weren't really connected to their body. They were acting kind of from here up and had no sense of their body. And then they'd see, like really stylized people, like mimes, who were like too, like too much of their body and indicating and doing all this amazing kind of trickery. But that wasn't what they were looking for. And she said, you know what? I need theater actors who act their entire body, but you're seeing them from a proscenium. So they know that if I'm in row 20, I can, by how they're speaking and how they're moving, how they're feeling. Because that's what this genre is, right? Mm-hmm. And so she said to our PSM, send over who you would say, like, make 4 or 5 of your best moving male actors. And I was lucky enough to be included in that group. So wow. We all, auditioned, and we did like the first sequence where it's like he's on the ship and what a great day this is, and Max comes up and, you scratch the dog and whatever. So we did like that little block. And I met them in, like, the Disney screening room, whatever, just like went to the audition, and they filmed me. And then I ended up getting it. And I think that part of it was because of my look, like, my brow line, my jaw line, like it was closer to what they were already drawing the character to be in some ways. And then maybe just, from all my training, classical theater and all that other stuff, I had a good sense of my body with that. And versatility from playing all sorts of different roles. That's actually one of the things that's sort of my calling card, is I'm really versatile. Mm-hmm. I'll be the guy who's like, you played 10 roles in that show. And until you were the fourth guy, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the same guy. Like, that's why I love it. It's fun. Yeah. So I put on, like the prince me, and we got to build the film. So what would happen would be, I would get, I never saw the whole script. I would get, like, wow, from Disney the day before we would rehearse it. It would be cassette tapes of the voices, all the music, all that was in the can. So they were doing the animation after that. So they would give me, like, the cassette tapes of those vocal sequences or dialogue sequences they were going to be doing, and then the storyboard of what that sequence was going to be looking like. And they would be anything from a really detailed, beautiful Prince Eric sketch of him, like, looking at Ariel, like, like, who's that? Like a close-up shot, to anything from, like, stick figures, like a girl on a rock and a stick guy, and, like, moves to the rock, and then, like, the next kind of detailed thing. So it was really just like, here's what we're thinking it's going to move like. And then we'd go into a rehearsal the next day, and I'd get that in my body, and it was my job to put the voice together with the storyboard and make it real. And then I'd work with Sherry Lynn Stoner, who was Ariel. And she was a great actress. She was in the Groundlings, was a Groundlings training program. She's now a writer at Disney. She's still there. So we would then riff off of that. We would, like, do what was planned, but then working with directors and working with Glenn Keane, the lead animator, we would create other stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that is in the film that came out of rehearsal that was totally my bit, that was nowhere on the storyboard, but's in the film. So those kind of, like, oh my gosh, it made it in. That's really cool. That's so cool. So what they would do is we would be up against a green screen. On the green screen was masking tape grid. And inside some of the grid squares would be another little, like, grid crosses to see, like, where are you moving within space. Everything was mocked up, like the rowboat for Kiss the Girl. We were, like, on 2, like, rolling stools, and we would just basically be, like, pushing ourselves around like this on a rolling stool, or, things like that, just totally low rent against the green screen. And they would do, like, playback in the room, like tick, tick, tick. And then that section we played, and we'd be mouthing to it and acting the stuff out. They would do all the shots from all the different angles. And then they would, from the takes of that they liked, they would do, like, a fax printout of that frame from that take. So they had fax printouts of, like, like that. And they would draw over those faxes. And that became how they built the animation, you know, using the old school, not doing like CG stuff. It was closer to the old school of how they did Peter Pan and Snow White, which is just, you know, unbelievable old school animation with some CG in it because of, you know, the technology, but it was filmed the old style that they hadn't done in so many years, which is also really cool to be a part of that. You know, the rebirth of the animated feature from Disney was really amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's how they did it, though. It was
So
cool.
cool.
Actually, if you go on the 25th anniversary edition, like I think it's called the Diamond Edition or something of the DVD, there's a whole DVD extras section, and there's like a 40-minute extra of how they did all the live action reference from Snow White through Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, blah, 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 Little Mermaid. And great interviews. And I got to meet at that session of making the DVD extras, I got to meet, oh my gosh, Catherine, oh gosh, I can't remember, Catherine, she's lovely. She was the voice and the live action for Wendy and for Alice and Alice in Wonderland. A lovely actress. She was like 80 something. She looked like dynamite. She was gorgeous. And it was just so fun to talk with other sort of like, oh my gosh, you were Wendy. Holy crap. Like I love that film. And like, you know, and I get what you did because I did it. So it was really, really amazing to meet other people who had created those roles. It was really, it's such an honor, you know, such an honor. It's really cool.
Yeah, totally. There's a question from the chat. Have you ever worked with Ivan Rutherford?
I know who Ivan Rutherford is, and it's like, and I'm like, this could be like way back, and I did work with him, but it could have been a quickie, like, so it's not like we were in it forever. Should I have remembered Ivan Rutherford? Did I blow it?
I know he is actually my voice teacher, but
Oh,
he was Valjean in the Les Mis tour. So I don't know.
okay, no, I didn't work with him there. Because I was trying to think, because I did it later at the Bowl, at the Hollywood Bowl, and and we had kind of a great grouping of original Broadway people, you know, like all that stuff. I helped to bring. I had just directed Les Mis at Hamilton High School, and so Richard J. Alexander came, and he was like, "I want these three amazing students in the production." I was like, yes. So it was their kind of Hollywood Bowl debut. It was really exciting to get to pull them into, you know, like with Brian Stokes Mitchell and with, you know, like all these amazing people, you know, legends, like, and it's like, and we get to be in this together. That's pretty cool. So, but I think, that's how I probably, yeah, from Les Mis. And I think we know each other from the Les Mis Facebook group as well.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think we ever did the show together, sadly. Ivan, you rock.
Rock. Just to switch gears a little bit, to you're an acting coach.
Mm-hmm.
So how has COVID-19 changed how you do your classes?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm actually going to be doing 2 master classes this Thursday and Friday for a wonderful theater in San Antonio called the Woodlawn Theater. So they have the Woodlawn Theater Academy. So I'm doing, normally my master classes are probably like 3 hours long to really like get in there and get in there and have a chance to do redos. This is like 1 hour, sort of the Zoom like attention span, 1 hour, you know, then like I have to check out and go somewhere else. So it's going to be I'm going to really full throttle as best I can. And so I think it's going to be fun to create these exercises and the technique. I'm teaching them audition monologue technique and then cold reading technique for auditions. So I wish I could go into even more depth with them and have that length of time that I normally invest in a master class. But I know that what I'm going to be giving them, in addition to the syllabus I provide for them for further study, will give them a lot of information and stuff that they can kind of digest. And then, you know, they can always just tag team with me and like, hey, what did you mean about that? And can you explain that further in a different session? Or we could just have a Zoom meeting ourselves or whatever to go more in depth on something they could only brush the surface and everyone had this much time to do it. But I will certainly be I'm always very honest. And I think the COVID thing is it's important for everybody involved to stay engaged. The hardest thing I find with COVID is if people choose to be in this kind of situation, like an acting class, and they choose to have their camera off. And I get that depending where they are and what's happening around them during this class might demand that. But it's hard for me because it's so much of an interactive medium. Like I have to see if that got better. I have to see if you're understanding and absorbing and employing what I'm saying. And if I can never see your face, but I am hoping you're getting it, I always feel like I really want to like be with you and get in there, you know.
Yeah.
But it's caused everybody, I think, to be incredibly inventive. And I feel like what we're doing with SORDID Lives, like thank to Brian Russell, like he's just amazing, you know, God bless him on E3 team, because he's helping from his adeptness with this current technology and what can be done now, still can make it work, even though it's not the best thing as we're all in the same room together. You know, there's still a lot that you can invent and use, and it doesn't have to be in a theater. So it's sometimes better if it is, but at the same time, you make it work however you do. And I guess and yet, so many of my clients anyway are out of town. Like I work with a couple in San Francisco. I have built all of their cabaret acts, and we've only been in the same room maybe 2 or 3 times in our lives.
Wow.
So I'm used to that gig, but I'm also, most of my coaching stuff is one-on-one. And so we can really just have that back and forth. If I'm looking at 20 squares and trying to track everybody, the challenge is keeping everybody engaged. And that's the difficult thing. But you know what? It's not all me. The other half is like, you want to be here? You got to know that's what you've got to do. And you got to kind of wake your body up and move and, you know, sit up and be like, I'm going to get everything. And this next hour, I'm like really going 100% being here and putting my attention on it and ask questions and stay engaged. Because that's the other half. It's not like sit back and I'll just be on my phone and you better entertain me. You know, it's like, it's a two-way street. So, you know, and so I guess that's the difference. You know, I do a lot of privates though. That's my coaching's a lot of one-on-ones, and the classes are normally, I always keep my classes very small too, even when they're in person. I never, ever, ever have more than like 10 people in a class ever, because I want people to have a lot of one-on-one time and redos and try it again. And like, there's the result. Yeah. If you have one shot, here are a couple things, sit down. You know, it's like being in an audition, but not being in a class, you know? So yeah, that's the process. And that's what I really value. And I want people to really feel like they moved forward and got a lot from watching everybody else, as well as, you know, just getting better themselves in their technique or whatever they want to work on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a social art form.
Yes.
Yeah. And how personal it is to get that time. So that's really great.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's fun to like feel the tangible energy in the room. Like it comes across to you, you take it, you react to it. But the better that this technology is getting, less delays and all that other stuff, you know what? It's happening. Yeah. And I think we also use breakout rooms to create small little like intimate work as well. That I think can also move things forward as well, instead of thinking I'm lost in a sea of grid, you know. The hard thing we were going to try at Cal Lutheran was going to be this blended learning thing where like, okay, for social distancing, half the class is coming on Tuesday. Like these 10 people are here. The other 10 people are on Skype or Zoom. Thursday, these people on Zoom come in, the other people are on Zoom. But we were just going, all right, I really want everybody to be engaged. How do I, you know, try to watch in the 10 people in front of me and then also be like, how are those 10 squares doing? Are y'all getting it too? You know, it's like, that's too much. I was like, I don't think I can do that and be effective. I really am. I want to be present, you know? So that's hard. So we're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
You know,
I know where I'm going to school next year, Shenandoah, is having something sort of like that too, with you can come into Zoom or you can come into the class. I know every school is doing different stuff, but I think it'll be really great.
I think it will too. And I think the more that we, you know, this medium can feel very isolating. You're like, I'm in my house, here I am on my screen again, I'm saying hi to friends like in a square. But if you like, if you have questions, don't take it in like you have to solve it all yourself. You know, I'd be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or like, can we work on this scene and like whatever, even just, let's meet in my driveway and social distance and keep, wear masks and be really safe, but at the same time do that or whatever. Find a way to still make it work or find the extra time and invest in it rather than be active, not passive.
Yeah.
Because the medium so easily is like, can get into like TV mode of watching, like going down the Netflix hole and you can just kind of be here forever. Like, my next Zoom meeting next, you can get kind of like, like move your body, force yourself to stay engaged and really put your attention where you are and participate instead of not participate and be passive. I feel that will make a big difference in the value you get from any of this medium.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. Like, don't pretend like I have to just entertain you while you're just being passive and I'm like exhausted by the end because it's a one-way street. It's got to be two-way, you know. And I think that's really important, and that we still get out and move our bodies and take care of ourselves physically and health wise and everything else, like get exercise and eat good food and stay hydrated and like as if you're doing a show.
Yeah.
But you're just sitting on your butt. It's really kind of like still like you're doing a show. Like that's the promise you have to make to yourself in this time. Create a really clear routine for yourself. Like every morning, I'm gonna walk that 2 miles with my dog. And then I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna get to work instead of like, oh yeah, I forgot to exercise for 4 days. And then you're like, it affects your energy level and your concentration and everything.
Yeah. Definitely. I just have one more question. What advice would you give to someone like me who I'm really interested in going into being a professional actor, and I'm really also interested in directing too. So what advice would you give to someone like me? Like,
well, I would say really observe and not just like, oh, that was good, like, oh, that show was good. I'd be like, okay, break it down.
okay.
Why was it good? Because as a director, you are you have to oversee everything, and you have to also be like, hey, and also be a good delegator, where it's not like, oh my God, I have to do everything myself. No, I create a great team around me and I interface well with them. And I'm like, how's that going over there on building that thing? Do you want my help? Do you want anything you want me to approve? And like, oh, great brainstorm. Fantastic. Now we know what to go and we move that forward. Here's our list of the next 3 things we want to do. How are you doing on costumes? Here's my vision about it. What do you think about that? And collaborate with people instead of just railroad people, where people feel like they can't participate with their artistry, you know? And a lot of times that ends up being in a much more fun result too. You're like, I thought it was going to go this way, but like actually ended up going this way, and it's so much better than the thing I had in my head. So be open to that. And I would say the same thing about acting. I would say that work on it every day, and I would really, really get in touch with your feelings so that you can use those feelings and really trigger them and flip it on when you need to and not act as if you were sad.
Mhm.
But you have enough things in your emotional Rolodex, you could pull that card out when you needed to, pop it in and make it happen. And then when that thing kind of wears out because you're using it a lot, you may have to go and you start to feel like it's forced or you're faking it, get a new one. So you're always kind of on the lookout for what's the stuff that's making me emotional. And understanding that the more worldly you are, the more you are involved in the world, like give a crap about politics, give a crap about your family, give a crap about what, everything, not just, oh, who's on Broadway? Do you hear how high she belted? And that's all I talk about. It's like, there's a lot more going on in the world than that. And the more you are involved with the world, the more kind of roles you can portray because the more worldly you are and the more emotions you will have and can use. So when you have a role that's not just a musical theater guy, like from No 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 Net or something, but like we're going to do a Tom Stoppard play about quantum physics, how to research that and give a crap about that so you really can embody it and
Yeah.
where that is coming from. because the great artist is one who just drops in like chameleon and really, you know, researches, talks to people, watches a lot of content, and we thank God we have a lot of it now through YouTube and so many other things that we, you know, anything you can't, like you could like how to do your own hip replacement. Watch that YouTube video. Like, okay, let me just, you know, so there's a million things. It's like everything is available. So as I'm researching, you know, even for Sorted Lives, I'm making a YouTube playlist for my cast to hear dialect, to hear sensibility, to hear, you know, what is it like to be a rigid Southern Baptist? Like, I'm not. So what is that?
Yeah.
And go, that's how these people are wired. We have to all know what that is. You know, that is our world in this play. So, or, you know, all those things, dialects, everything. So I think it's available to us, and you have to have a curious mind and be voracious and want to learn and love people and love all kinds of life that you can truly embody it, so that you're not always just the same, but wearing different clothing, you know, and then you're true to the part. And I would say that about a director. Like literally, I will see a show, and depending on what's happening, like technically, like, oh, that's a really cool lighting. I will be like, what are they doing on the grid? What's happening? I was like, okay, the rails on this. I would just break it down. Like, how did they design that? So I'm always looking at it with two eyes in a way. But I remember being in grad school and being super critical, like, because we were just like, this is how it should be done. I was always like, it's not good enough. And I was always just grumpy and never enjoying theater because I was always like, I just knew better and whatever. And then I was like, I'm losing my love for this art form. So I was just kind of like, let all that go, be there and go, hey, I'm open. Tell me the story. And just enjoy it. I started enjoying myself so much more. And I kind of knew how they were doing things and I appreciated like always technically breaking everything down, which made it kind of joyless. And then afterwards, like Cloris Leachman, you know, like, why do you think that was funny? And then being able to dissect it again, but enjoy it the first time instead of like always be dissecting, and never having fun. Because that's why you want to do this because it's fun, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the joy in your heart. Yeah, because there could be a lot of things that pay more consistently, and you know you can go to work every single day doing the thing you love. And there's a million things that it's always a roller coaster, right? So
Yeah.
if it's not something that you love, if you don't have it, like I've got to do this and I love it so much, find something else because it's not worth it. You know, find something that makes you that happy. So I would say to you, learn as much as you can, travel as much as you can, be open to as many kinds of people, cultures, interfacing as you can, and not just travel with one group of people that only talks about the same thing because that's a really they're great, but it could be a very narrow hallway. Become worldly, and that's really important. You know.
Okay. Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
this has been
Any
Joshua
other
Finkel.
is there any questions?
What?
Okay. Were there any other questions on the feed or anything that we have to like? Anyone like not?
No, I don't see any more questions.
Okay.
All right, so this is Joshua Finkel. If you want to go to his website, it's ccactingstudio.com. And if you
Or
would like,
JoshuaFinkel.com as well. Yeah.
or joshuafinkel.com. All right. And then if you would like to donate to P3 Theater Company or P3 Educates Plus, you can go to the link in their bio on Instagram or Facebook, or you can go to p3theater.biz. All right, well, great. Thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And watch Sorted Lives on October 5th at 7 o'clock. It's going to be outrageous and really great. I'm so excited about this group of actors and this team. It's great.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, you guys.
Bye.